Home Rule Charter Commission will come to order. Mr. Charles, would you give us the invocation, and Mr. Bill, would you give us the pledge, please?
Oh, Heavenly Father, as we come this hour in the evening, we want to say thank you for being so kind to us and watching over us and keeping us safe. Father God, as we assemble here to do the business of the parish, we pray that you would just lead and guide us and have us do things that are decent in order. These blessings we ask in your darling Son, Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ms. Secretary, would you do a roll call, please?
Terry Cazo. Present. William Bluart.
Here.
Greg DePlasis.
Present.
Sidney Luke. Robert Crochet.
Here.
Charles Shivers.
Here.
Walt Stewart.
Present.
Diane Ayo. And Mr. William Dawson.
Here.
I'm Secretary. Make a note that Red indicated, called and indicated he has sickness in his family is the reason he's unable to attend. Mr. Luke.
Mr. Luke.
Make that notation if you will.
Well, gentlemen and lady, we have a quorum, so we're going to have us a meeting. Hopefully we can get everything done tonight. I open the public comment sign-in period for anyone that want to comment on an item on the agenda. Madam Secretary, do we have anybody? Public comment sign-in period is now closed. First thing I want to do, we have some items on the agenda that we'd like to take off. And those items are, if you would turn to your agenda in the back of your agenda, we'd like to remove under section 901, articles 3, which is O, article 3, section 301A.
Scratch that, you said?
Yes, sir, scratch it. The next one, P, article 4, section 401 and section 402. U, article 7, section 701A. Article 7, section 7-03. Under item Y, article 4, section 412E. Those items to be removed. Do I have a motion to remove those items from the agenda?
Motion.
Second.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Motion passed. Madam Secretary, we'll remove those from the agenda tonight. The next order of business is going to be adopting, on the old business, adopting the minutes of December the 3rd. Do I have a motion to adopt those minutes?
I'll make that motion.
I second.
I have a motion to adopt the minutes of December the 3rd and a second. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion passes. Next item on the agenda is going to be section 3-03, item D. Open for discussion.
D.
D.
Yes, D. Section 3-03. It was tabled. Item D.
And
Any discussion? Ms. Terry?
Mr. Milton, I think the reason for the tabling of this was there was some misunderstanding about what this related to, and I think it's been clarified that what it relates to is that if the parish president serves as a department head and he can't be paid for both positions. Is my memory correct on that?
I think so, yes, ma'am.
And I think that is what it meant, Lindsay. I think you clarified that for us.
So,
I got a motion on the floor to leave as is. Do I have a second?
Second.
Have a second. Discussion on the motion. All in favor of the motion?
aye.
Opposed? Motion to item will remain as is. Remain. Next item is going to be section 3-03F.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Bill?
I have some discussion on that. From what I understand, the previous motion was to add the phrase "with the exception of a department head." Is that correct? And has that been adopted? No. Okay. The minutes I had at this, the commission unanimously agreed to F to read as amended. However, the governing authority shall have the power to reinstate any employee with the exception of a department head.
Yes, that's what we did, but then we after further discussion,
We tabled it.
we tabled it and to bring it back up tonight for rediscussion.
Okay. I'd like to move that that item F read, however, the governing authority shall have the power to reinstate any employee with the exception of department heads and officers appointed per paragraph B of this section, who has been removed by the president, but only upon a 2/3 vote of the members of the governing authority. Just a little bit of background with this. You know, if you look at, I did some research on 6 different charters in this region, and there are none of these charters, Lafourche, St. Tammany, Livingston, Jefferson, St. Charles, or Iberville, none of these charters allow the reinstatement of a department head. Just some background, pardon me because I'm new to this, but my understanding of the goal is that we should have separation of the powers, and that we should separate the powers, and that should allow the executive branch and the legislative branch to do their duties, and then hold them responsible. So I feel like that if the president can't appoint and maintain his department heads and his chief administrative officer, then it's hard to hold him responsible for the day-to-day activities. Therefore, I make this motion.
I'll second.
We have a motion on the floor and a second. Any discussion on the motion is now open. Mr.
Is this mic on? Yeah. The motion that you're making, is that taken into consideration that there is a review board?
It doesn't really apply to the review board, because all this does is it takes away the ability of the council to reinstate a department head or one of his officers. So the review board could still stay in this process, but from my understanding, usually the department heads are exempt employees and they're not subject to the review board. So no matter what this is, the review board should not come into play for an exempt employee.
That would certainly be my feeling.
So what you're saying is any other employee could be reinstated with the exception of the department head. in
That's
essence.
correct. That's the only change that I'm proposing here at this time is that he be allowed to maintain his department heads and his officers that he's appointed in paragraph 2, which is, among others, his chief administrative officer.
Let me break for a minute right now, and I kind of jumped ahead. We do have someone in the audience that would like to speak, and they should have spoke first on this, and I'm going to let us pick back up, but I'm going to let Ms. Catherine come forth and speak on this particular section. You have 3 minutes, ma'am.
Thank you. Good evening.
I apologize for not calling you up
Okay.
first before we started. I apologize.
I think that this is closely related to Section 504, where it does talk about human resources. I do think the suggestion that's being made, or motion, is a good one. If the department head is removed by the parish president, I think it's unlikely that he would want to go back and serve under the parish president, even if the council reinstated him. I think there's a, whether it's a relationship or whatever caused the removal of that department head, I think that's not a question, really. The department head, I think, can be left with the parish president. I think the other employees really need something beyond the review board, because the review board basically sends its determination back to the parish president who fired the person in the first place. So it's kind of like in the same circle. So I really think the council needs to have an opportunity to hear the appeal process, and in the past has heard people that had a problem with being removed from their position. And without that extra safeguard of the council, there could have been lawsuits brought to the parish that were thwarted because the council had an opportunity to look at everything apart from what the parish president had initially determined. So I think it is good to leave it. I agree with the motion that you suggested, Mr. Dawson. Thank you so much.
Again, Ms. Catherine, I apologize for not calling you up first before we started on this section. Fellow commissioners, let's pick it back up from where we left off, and the discussion of a motion on the floor by Mr. Dawson. Mr. Poche?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The original intent of this, Mr. Dawson, was the fact that at that time the discussion that made this come up, where it would include the department heads also, was the example cited was that if an incoming president didn't have the support of the particular department head in their election, when they came in, they could clean house and install new employees. Whether or not that particular employee had been doing an exemplary job or not, that was this discussion that brought it about, that this person would have, if he got the 2/3 review of the council, he could be reinstated for if he felt he was fired for that reason. That was the discussion part of it.
Well, I understand that, and I appreciate that. That situation may come up. However, having been in business, and if you don't allow the person in charge to pick his cadre of officers, then it's very hard to hold him responsible for his actions. And so, I feel like that if we actually want to make this separation between the legislative and the executive branch, then we need to give the parish president the full authority, and we need to hold him fully responsible for his actions. Now, if there's a situation where he lets go of someone that's doing his job, that's his that's his problem when his performance, on the performance of his job. I still feel like that it's important that he be able to choose his leaders.
Nope.
Any further discussion on the motion?
Mr. Chairman, I got a question.
Mr. Mark?
Before we move on this matter, I was looking through my notes, and as it relates to the advisory board, just making sure I'm straight on all of this. I've gotten my notes that on section 504, that's human resources, under C 1 and 2, I have marked change as amended, and what I have is in that number 2, after hearing, the review board shall submit their advisory recommendations to the parish president. The decisions made by the president in these matters shall be final. And it did say, unless overruled by 2/3 majority vote of the governing authority. I have that lined out, and a note by, as I was going through, as we passed any changes amended. I don't know if we need to just look back and make sure, because I notice on the agenda tonight under 504 is on the agenda tonight, and under C2 it still reads as originally worded.
We'd agreed to bring it back up tonight.
Okay.
Mr. Moore, everything that's on the agenda tonight is we bring it back up to make a final decision. A lot of it was tabled, a lot of it was deferred, and some of it was to committee, and some of it was to legal. And what we're trying to do tonight is clear all that up. And anything that
Okay, well, I'm just saying, according to my notes, as we were going
Right.
through whatever night that was dealt with, we passed that with as amended.
But the two are interrelated.
Right.
Yeah. Oh, yes, sir.
So, I mean, was it already passed as amended? And then did we go back after that and decide that we were going to bring it back up for discussion, or?
Someone here.
I have that it was changed on that. I have on my records it was changed.
Exactly.
But then we also have on my notes that we came back and deferred it for verification.
Okay. All right.
Is what we're really trying to do here.
Okay.
Is verification. Now, if we want to leave it like it was,
Well, I
we
mean,
can
it's
do
coming
that
up
too,
later
Mr.
on the
Moore.
agenda. Before
right.
we went all the way through on this one
No, a
here,
lot of this
I was
is-
just
a lot of
making
this
the point
stuff
that we had changed part of that about that advisory committee.
No, right, yeah. Well, thank you, Mr. Moore. No, we did change it. We did change it to read what Commissioner Mark said. Now, Mr. Dawson is proposing another motion to replace what we did the first time. We're discussing that motion, and if we want to...
Can we think about this? I think that, Mark is right, and maybe there can be a change to my motion that would just not cover this reinstatement by 2/3, and then we can bring that up in this 504. You follow what I'm saying here? This is to reinstate. Well, I know it says any.
Well, and I'm not in disagreement. I was just saying that as I was looking through when you were reading your motion, that I saw where we had changed 504.
Well, they need to correspond.
But that's coming up later, so
I just want to remind all the commissioners that we do have a chance tonight to change anything that we... In other words, it's sort of like a review. It's a secondary review to see the items that we changed, that we did not finally, that we felt that we tabled or deferred or whatever. That's what we're doing tonight, is to put those to bed. In other words, make a decision on those items and rule on them and make our recommendations to the council. But if we already made a change and everybody's in agreement with it, then let's go ahead and keep it as it is and move on. I'm in favor of that.
I think we have a motion
Ms.
on
Terry?
the floor. in a second.
We have a motion
We
on
have
the
a
floor now
motion and a
from
second.
Mr. Dawson.
The only further discussion I'd like to add is that there are some documents in surrounding parishes who just solved this problem by having a 3.03F say that the department heads and directors serve, or department heads and appointed directors serve at the pleasure of the parish president. And that cleans it all up without this wording, and then prevents it from becoming a part of 5.04, which is a whole different issue. That's human resources that will relate to every other employee other than those who are department heads or that appointed director. So there is it's a matter of, I think, of having Lindsay recommend to us what is the best way to structure this, because I see it as a structural issue if
Right.
we are in agreement, and I think probably we need to take some kind of vote on whether we're in
That's-
agreement with striking this.
Right.
And
That's why
then
this was brought up again tonight.
re-implementing it under human resources where we may protect with a review board, and we'll have further discussion about that. But it strikes these department heads. So Lindsay's going to have to, I think, give us where it needs to be.
Well, can we amend this motion?
Yes, that's
Yes, sir.
that's my recommendation.
Yes, sir, we can.
So I'm not sure, the amendment would be to have the wording that you recommended, is that the department heads and officers appointed per paragraph B of this section serve at the pleasure of the president. And then that would be the amendment to my motion. Then you don't have this 2/3 is not in there. You can address that in the 504C. Is that what?
I think that would solve the problem. What do you, Lindsay? Recommendation?
Put that in section B, and you can just leave F the same. Is that what you're saying?
No.
No.
Mr. Bill, reinstate your whole,
Okay.
reword your whole.
The amended motion would read that you would strike paragraph F and replace it with department heads and officers appointed per paragraph B of this section shall serve at the pleasure of the president. Because this is really a section on the powers and duties of the president. This is not about the governing authority.
Correct.
Right. Then we'd be removing any affiliation between the governing authority and the parish president if we did this, right? Is what I'm understanding, Mr. Bill?
And you would still have this opportunity in 504C to where an employee that goes before the review board can be reinstated with 2/3. That's still covered under this section 5.
Right.
But what this would, and I think you're right, this would clear this up and just state that the department heads and his appointed officers serve at his pleasure.
Yeah, and it's a temporary. Removing this, it's temporary. It's until we get to 504. So we don't need to
Now
be...
this is going to address people that are not
Right.
addressed in section 5
Exactly.
because this would address the exempt employees.
Right. I'm using the term, it's temporary. In other words, for just a few minutes, gentlemen, the employees are going to be unprotected
Oh, I
here
see.
until we get to 504. Okay. It's a very temporary, we're not... I don't want anybody to object because they think what we are attempting to do is leave an employee unprotected. That is not the case. We will address that in 504.
Motion.
Okay, my amendment is that section F shall read, department heads and officers appointed per paragraph B of this section shall serve at the pleasure of the president.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any more further discussion on the motion?
No.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed. Next item on the agenda will be section 3-07, item A. Section 307A. These, if I'm not mistaken, correct me on this, Mark and Terry, and the rest of you gentlemen, these were just items that were put on the agenda for a second review. For some reason we have it that it was deferred. I think we may have made some changes on some of this already. 307. No, my records show we left every one of these items A, B, and C, under sections 307s, items A, B, and C. I have, we kept them as they were. They remain.
Do we need another motion to leave them?
Say again?
In other words,
I thought we had passed to leave them as is.
yes, sir, we
That's what we're
did.
saying.
I don't know why they evidently got on the
Motion to remove that from the
agenda. I got a motion.
Second.
Second to remove from the agenda, section 3-07, vacancies, B, A, B, and C. So,
Right. Good.
all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Remove from the motion. removed from the agenda. The next item will be section 4-01, and I have someone that would like to speak on that item on the agenda. Ms. Catherine?
Before I proceed, I'd like to just ask a quick question. It's a little confusing. Under the end of the agenda, you said that you were striking from the agenda Article 4, Section 4-01, which is this item.
We did it under Section 9-01 under N. Those items there. It's on the agenda twice, and we're taking it off at the end. We're discussing it now.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm assuming, because I didn't have an opportunity to discuss this, hear your discussion, that you're considering the composition of the council and the number of council members. Is that correct, Mr. Kluot?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, good. The census will be coming up in 2010. I don't know how long it will take for that to translate down to the legislature of various states.
1 year.
Yeah, 1 year. I thought it was about a year. So by 2011, we will have an indication of whether we need to redraw our district lines.
We will be doing reapportionment in 11.
Right. So if we make a decision now to change the composition of the council, it will not necessarily affect the next election. I believe that with the increase of population in our parish, and say in the next 30 years we're to be close to 200,000 people. Presently, at 100,000 or 110,000, we have 11 council members. That's about 10,000 representing per each district. If we reduce the size of the council, we increase the people that they represent. It means that each person receives less representation. That increases the workload of the council member. And I do think that if you look at East Baton Rouge Parish, which is supposedly going to be pretty similar to Ascension Parish when this all comes about, if it does, they have, I believe, 11 council members now. 12? 12, okay. So I don't think it's a good idea to change the composition of the council right now. Even though there's talk to consider that, I think we need to consider the workload, the change in population, and I know there's also the opportunity to have at-large members, but I would hesitate to do that because an at-large, that would take a lot more restructuring of the charter, because an at-large member would be a lot of cost to run that election, almost as much as a parish president, since it's parish-wide, $250,000 for that campaign. And I think a normal council person does not have that kind of money, and we should not ask a normal council person to do that. I think we should consider, if we're going to do that, a full-time position, fully paid. We're not there yet. You know, that's not in the charter. And so I think we should just leave it just like it is, see what happens with the census. You had recommended that in every 2 years, I think I'm right, you wanted to have a review of the charter?
I think we have a 5-year review.
Five-year review, okay. That would give us like 3 years after the census to look at, you know, where we are in population and how the changes that are going to be made, if there are any, are being implemented and how they're affecting. So those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gadsden. Before we go any further, I'm having a little trouble with the agenda. We haven't been able to get a quorum to have a number of people have meetings, so I would beg the indulgence on everybody here in relation to the agenda. Some of the stuff was put on here at the request of other commissioners and everything, so if we have duplicate places in here, we're trying to just take them off, or if we have any items on the agenda that we've already ruled and made a decision on it, I apologize for that, but we haven't had a meeting since December the 3rd. And I just want to comment on that. Right now we have section 4-01 open for discussion.
Mr. President,
Yes, sir.
I'm of the opinion that with the population and the growth that we're having in the parish, I don't think we should be making an attempt to try to reduce the members council at this point. I think we might end up, after the census is taken, if they want to redraw the district lines, that's going to bring up some other things that have to be addressed. And I think some of it may have to even go before another type of board or something before we can truly address it. So, I mean, I would like to recommend to leave it as is for the time being myself.
Mr. Poche.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was wishing Mr. Loop would have been here. Because in speaking with the people, residents of this parish about us working on this charter, the one issue that was the most talked about and they had the most passion for appeared to be the number of council members. Now, whenever they would tell me that, I'd ask them what would be their suggestions. And, of course, we had various suggestions, including some of them being members at large, 5, 7, 9, leave as is, by two of the people that I spoke with wanted to leave as is. One of them, of course, was a council member. If you will look, I passed out the number of either council members or police jurors in every parish in the state. I think that this parish has the capability of at least doing as well as Jefferson, Lafayette, Livingston, Orleans, Rapides, St. James, Terrebonne, Tangipahoa, who all have either 9 or less. If you would add all, and this is not very scientific, but it's what I did. You add all the council members and police jurors up, you divide that by 64 parishes, and you get 9. The number that comes out to. I want to just tell everybody, all the council members, all our board members, that they have to keep in mind not the number of people that they represent, because that can be the whole purpose of the parish council is to be legislators, not administrators. The parish president's job is to administer. I recognize that this parish will be growing. I don't think it's going to reach the numbers that some of these other parishes that I mentioned, such as Jefferson, who's handled pretty well with 7 members. So I fail to see the point in the number of people in a representative's district. I would, I gave this plenty of thought, and Mr. Red has some thoughts on this also. I would like, in fact, to make a recommendation to change the number of council members we have. I think it's the opportune time to change this number, since we'll be doing a reapportionment before the next election, and we'll make, when I make my motion, part of that motion will be that this will not take effect until after the next reapportionment. So the next election that would be held for 9 districts instead of 11. At the proper time, Mr. Chairman, I'll make that as a motion.
I have a motion on the floor. Do I have a second?
At the proper time, so there may be some other discussion.
Mr. Poche, do you have a copy of that document that you had done? I thought I had one. Mark doesn't have one either, and he was...
I passed one out. I thought to everyone, but
well,
I got some other...
I had it in my stuff, but I can't seem to put my hands on it right now.
Okay, I have a motion on the floor by Mr. Poche. Do I have a second?
Couldn't we go
I'll
through it?
second that for the sake of discussion.
I have a second. Open motion now on the floor. Open for discussion.
Yes, Daddy.
Well, I've also, I didn't do quite the extensive amount of research that Mr. Poche did, but I did look at the adjoining parishes and looked at how many districts they have, and as Mr. Poche said, this varies very widely. I mean, for example, you've got Iberville Parish has 32,000 population, and they have 13 councilmen. And then Jefferson, as you talked about, they have a population of 430,000, and they have 7 councilmen. I didn't look at it. I didn't look at it statistically, but probably what that tells me is that you have a fairly large standard deviation on this, and that even though the average might be 9, I don't know what the the average error is probably pretty large on it. But in me looking at it, I didn't see a compelling reason to change it. It looked like it was more or less in line with what these neighboring parishes were. If I look at that based on population, and I understand what you're saying, that it's a legislative duty. However, I know in our district, it's still the councilman still has this duty of calls by all his residents, his or her, residents, and they do have quite a bit of a workload that comes from their represented districts.
Do we have any further discussion on the motion?
Well, I'd just like to,
Mr. Gregg?
I guess, follow his lead and path on that, in that I think it's working pretty well as is with 11, and with the increased population, and I appreciate everybody's discussion on both sides of it, and as far as the state averages, that's well and good too, but I think we're at a point now, it's almost, if it ain't broke, fix it.
Mr. Poche.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
I'd like to call on you, and you tell us the calls and number of calls you received and people who spoke with you, and what was the main concern of those people. Give us the numbers, please, if you don't mind.
Mr. Poche, as you know, I received quite a few calls. I don't really remember the number, but it's up there. And some of the items that were discussed, the most important thing that was discussed was the number of councilmen, term limit, councilman at large, and the separation of powers. And out of all those that were people calling me and questioning me and asking me on those and commenting on those items, was the number of councilmen that we have now. And the majority of them were asking that if we would consider reducing the parish council in relation to the reapportionment that's coming up, but the majority of them wanted reducing the parish councilman. Mr. Poche.
Mr. Chairman, that was the very reason for this motion, was that it was the most discussed issue of all the things that I had a lot of discussion on different issues, but it was the most one, and they asked me would I please bring that up. They had a lot of, like I tell you, a lot of suggestions, as you just mentioned, the term limits, the at-large candidates, and et cetera, et cetera. I personally think that we would be, I would not be doing my duty if I not bring this up, since that was the most talked about subject and what the most requested item on this charter that I addressed. Henceforth, that's why I brought this motion up. I agree with the motion. I'll stand by the motion.
My position certainly is, I seconded the motion largely because it is obviously what the people that I talked to wanted. Now, whether it is what needs to be done, I'm not real sure. I think I have very mixed feelings on it, particularly because it takes all those phone calls that the councilmen have to address. But I also think it's also possible that if we separate the powers appropriately, then there will be a significant reduction in the number of issues that a councilman will be having to deal with. Those things will just be addressed to the office of the parish president, and his number of phone calls ought to go up significantly. I have very mixed feelings on it, and I respect the gentlemen who have an opinion that is more contrary to mine. I'm going to maintain my second with the understanding that I have due respect to the other opinions. But I also believe, like Mr. Poche does, that if it's ever going to be done, now is the time because of the reapportionment that's coming.
Do we have any further discussion on the motion?
No.
I have a motion on the floor. Mr. Poche, would you repeat your motion, please?
Change the number of councilmen in Ascension Parish from 11 to 9 with the effective date after reapportionment.
All in favor?
Roll call, please.
Roll call, Mrs. Zahn. Would everybody answer Mrs. Zahn? Mrs. Zahn, would you do a roll call, please?
Ms. Cazzo.
Yes.
Mr. Duplessis.
No.
Mr. Poche.
Yes.
Mr. Shivers.
No.
Mr. Stewart.
Nay.
I'm sorry.
No.
No. And Mr. Dawson.
No.
The motion fails. We will have 11 members. Okay, with that in mind, that will automatically answer.
Okay, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
I'd just also like to point out, if I'm understanding right how this is going to work, regardless of what we send to the council, they can accept, reject, or amend anything, and
No,
so won't they
can't-
have the option?
They can't amend
Can't
it.
amend.
They can accept it or reject it.
Yeah.
Only. Right. They can't come back.
Correct.
And
They can't amend it.
okay, we're going to move now to section 4-02, elections that was deferred.
Okay. This is this A? 4-02A?
Yes. That's the one you're going on now, right?
No.
I have-
Yes. I'm very sure. Yes, sir. This is section 4-02A. Members of the governing authority shall be elected from a single member district. Open for discussion. This was put in here that if we did change section 401, it would have reflected section 402A and B.
Because we could have.
I make a motion we accept it as
Because of the
is.
at-large district and
Now, this is a change. This is a change from the original. The B is an addition to the original charter. Is that correct?
Each member election of a
No.
single district site. No, sir, that is in the charter.
It's still in there.
That's in the charter. That's what's in the charter.
Okay.
The change was,
Okay. I'm sorry.
So
In other words, if we change section 4-01, would have reflected
You didn't make a
section
change yet.
A if we'd have changed and added at large into section 4-01, because the single member the single district then would have not applied.
I'm fine.
So
No, I understand.
section 4-02 A and B.
you have a motion.
Is there a
Do
second?
I have a motion to remain as is?
I made a motion that we keep it as is.
I second.
I have a second. That this motion then covers section 4-02 A and B.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Okay. All in favor?
Hang on.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
in my notes, I don't know if we have passed
I
this or
have the
not,
same note.
that we have in the past, but each member from a district shall be a resident and be a qualified elector of that district for a period of 6 months.
Yeah, I have that from the minutes.
Well,
So it's not exactly as we're reading it here. We passed that.
I
we had
stand
passed that. That
corrected.
change
You're
should have
right,
been in
because
B.
that change
Okay.
should have been in there.
Should have been in there. Yes.
So my motion would be that we,
A is the same, but B
A
is
is the
as
same.
amended.
B as amended.
be as amended.
As amended. Okay.
I withdraw my first motion and make another one.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Mr. Chairman, I have an addition to 402. I'd like to propose something for 402C.
Mr. Dawson.
And we talked about this, about reapportionment, and maybe Ms. Manda can reflect some light on this, but as I read the charter, there are no provisions in the charter itself for reapportionment. I again looked at all the other charters that I looked at have a reapportionment clause in it. And, subject to the legal review, I would like to add a reapportionment clause to this charter, and I have a draft of one that I think the chairman and the secretary has a copy of. But what it says is following the official publication of the 10-year federal census by the United States Bureau of Census, and at least 6 months prior to the next election for the governing authority members. Following publication of the census, the governing authority by ordinance shall, if necessary, alter, change, or rearrange council district boundaries so as to provide for population equality among the districts as near as reasonably practicable. To the extent possible, governing authority districts shall be compact and be composed of contiguous territories. If it is necessary to provide for a new apportionment plan, it shall be in compliance with all federal and state law. And then paragraph 2 of this is, if an election for council members is scheduled for the same year in which census data are publicized and federal approval is required for the reapportionment plan, then the council by ordinance may postpone reapportionment for not more than 1 year. Now this clause I took from these other 6 charters, and additionally this is a recommendation from PAR. The last paragraph is actually, I think, a recommendation from the model county charter that the Bureau of one of the federal agencies put out. But what this last paragraph does is, for example, in 2000, as you said, in 2010 there's a census. The census is not published until 2011. We have an election in 2012, and so it could be possible that you wouldn't have time in there, even though it says you have to do it 6 months ahead of time. And then if this has to be approved by the federal government under, for equality purposes, then you may not have time to do this in the election cycle. So it allows the council only on these very specific exclusions where the census is published in the same year as the election, it allows them to postpone that. Again, that was a recommendation of this Public Affairs Research Council.
Yeah. Mr. Porsche.
Does that follow state law? Is that where you got that?
It's in all 6 of these charters, and some of these are as recent as 2004. I, again, would like to defer this, as I've mentioned earlier. I'd like to have this as a draft to be reviewed by legal, but it does, state that this has to be in compliance with federal and state law. But these words are just about verbatim from these other councils. From these other charters.
Because state law is pretty clear as to the time frames and dates and exemptions from this. I was just wondering if you had got that from them.
No, I got the exemption from either PAR or a model county charter. I can't remember which.
Can I interject something right now? We, on the last month, we have to turn this in April meeting, and here we are at the end of February. If there's any way possible that we can settle that, where we can give all these documents and changes to legal department and secretary to come up with a final draft that we can go ahead and vote on individually, which we'll discuss at the end of the it's at the end of on the agenda at the end. If we keep deferring stuff, then I will have to go before the chairman and the parish president or the council to see if we can get an extension from April the 1st. We have to turn this in April the 1st. So if we can, any way possible tonight, come up with a reasonable, workable recommendation, I sure would appreciate it, and I think the rest of you gentlemen and young lady would love that too, so that we can go ahead and get this project finished with.
Well, I'll change the motion, and I'll make it to read that we add this paragraph as I read it, and if we still have one more opportunity one more bite of the apple on this, and if Ms. Manda has time to look at that between now and then, and we can do it, but we'll make this, I'll make my motion such that this be rather than a draft language, be the final proposed language.
And then we can ask Ms. Manda that if there's any laws that cover what we're trying to do with this, that it's not right, give us that recommendation, and if there's anything that we can do to reword it to where it does fit into the law, where we're not in, where our recommendations is not, where our recommendation is wrong and incorrect.
Title 18 election code is clear.
I second the motion.
Got a second? Okay.
Substitute motion, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Substitute motion will be to remove the last paragraph of his last line. Is it paragraph?
It's paragraph 2. This is the one where you have the exception for the for when the census. And
That's the one I'm making reference to, sir.
Yeah.
Let me see if I understand you right. You're amending your substitute's motion
to
for
remove
the
last paragraph where it relates to they can extend it for 1 year.
Okay. Do I have I need a second on your amendment. Do I have a second on his amendment?
I'll second that. We can discuss that just 1 second. Is that
okay? Yes, you second it. Okay,
and I'd like to discuss the amendment.
Okay, let's. Floor's open for discussion of amendment, Mr. Bill.
There were 2 recommendations from PAR. This was the one that was adopted by the model county. The other recommendation was to allow to change the 6 months to 3 months. I felt like, 3 months wasn't enough time for somebody to know where their district is and have a campaign. So I chose the latter of these to just fit these very unusual situations. I don't know what. Statistically, this probably only comes up once every 40 years, but it will come up in 2011.
Every 10 years.
The census comes up every 10 years, but this is only when the census is published and the election is in the same year.
Same year.
So this amendment won't take place every 10 years. It won't go into effect every 10 years.
Understand? But it has twice already that I know of.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Martin.
With the 2 paragraphs, and I know some of this you said is PAR recommendations and some from some counties, and I think I glanced at your sheet. It looked like the other parishes you had referenced in your comparison all had something in there.
Right.
Dealing with this, do they have this clause in most, or did you have a chance to look into that much detail in each of these parishes?
I think only one, which is the most recent one, which and I can't. I'd be afraid to say, but I think it's probably Lafourche. But when I did the review, I know the review of St. Tammany. PAR did a review of St. Tammany's charter, and they recommended this clause.
Any more discussions on the amendment?
Substitute.
Substitute amendment.
Motion. Substitute motion.
Vote. All in favor?
Aye.
There's a roll call.
Did he call for a roll call?
Yeah.
He did.
Yeah. Let's put this down. Make sure everything. Let's go for a roll call.
I want to make sure what we're voting on. We're voting on the substitute motion? No.
You're voting on the amendment to mine, which
To his
is
motion.
strike.
Yeah.
Which is to strike the final
The
paragraph.
substitute motion was to strike.
Strike the
That's
last
correct.
paragraph of
That's correct.
the motion.
No.
Mark?
No.
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 Mr. Blessing.
No.
Mr. Fauché.
Yes.
Mr. Shivers.
No.
Mr. Stewart.
No.
Mr. Dawson.
No.
The amendment to his motion fails. Now we come back to the original motion.
Right.
Are we finished? We got all the discussions on
Yes.
any call for a vote? And all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Of adding a paragraph C to section 4-02, elections. We're adding a paragraph C to section 4-02 of reinforcement.
Many of y'all going to check if that's in compliance with the state law?
Yes, I'll check on that.
Thank you.
Okay, the next item on the agenda will be section 4-04, and that was sent to a committee for Mr. Gregg. So I'll now open the floor to Mr. Gregg.
This is not going to take long. After further review by the committee, we recommend no change and leave as is.
Do I have a second?
Second.
You offering this as a motion?
Well, I will, but I was going to leave it open for discussion just in case. But if there's no discussion, I will make that in the form of a motion that we leave as is.
A second. Mr. Porsche. Discussion on the motion.
I would have had a change on that, but since we didn't change the number of councilmen, I will leave as is.
Changing the number of councilmen, sure. It kind of.
Well, yeah, I was going to give it 10% of votes.
It kind of speeded things up by not changing the number of councilmen.
Okay.
Okay.
I have one item up.
Do I have any discussion on the motion, Mr. Dawson?
Am I correct in the way I read this is the governing authority may change its salaries by ordinance, but not during the last year of the term of office. But what that allows for is that they can change their salary while they're in office. So, for example, if they're in a 4-year term, they can come in that first year and they can change their salary, and that'll be effective for them the rest of the time they're in office. Mm-hmm. Most of the recent charters that I looked at, they don't allow for the parish president's salary nor the governing authority's salaries to be changed during the present term. And that's the leaning that I have is that if someone is elected to the council, they know what that salary is, and they're elected for that 4-year term at that salary. Now, if they vote to increase that salary, it should not be effective until the next term. Is my opinion, and again, that's consistent with the recent charters.
Makes sense.
Well, the only thing I would add to that discussion is, as it stands now, they're basically regulated by the rate of the police jury, which is changed periodically, and so they typically stay in line with what's the maximum allowable, but they can't go beyond that.
So they do have, Mr. Gregg, they do have a mechanism that is in place that governs the way that they're paid, their salaries.
That is correct. That's the standard that they go by now.
Okay. Mr. Porsche.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
just as an explanation of how that handled, Police Jury Association periodically obtains legislation to change the maximum amount that they can receive. And what this will do, if passed, it will keep it to that particular number. And it's legislatively done at the state capitol, so it's not something that is done by parish. All parishes are governed by that same jurisdiction, and currently I don't think our parish is up to the maximum, but it's set by that, by legislation. It's not arbitrary from parish to parish.
Okay.
Greg, ma'am, Greg,
Sure.
would you? I'm leaning toward Mr. Dawson's position. I wonder if your subcommittee considered the authority that they have to raise their own salary and what impact the last time our legislature decided they were going to raise their own salary, what the outcry of the public was. And would it be possible then for us to come up with some wording that would be in line with what Mr. Dawson's talking about, but yet maintain that the governing authority members receive an annual salary determined by the police juror state law? I mean, can we go from that point to that they cannot, how would we word that they cannot raise their own salary, and would you have a problem with that?
No, I don't have a problem with it, but I'm quickly thinking if we would box them in a corner where they could never give themselves a raise if they continue to get reelected.
Well, the next term, they can elect it in the next term. Even if they're reelected, they would be in the next term. I have some suggested language if you want to try this. This is, the annual salary of the governing authority members shall not exceed the maximum allowed for police jurors by state law. During the third year of each four-year term, the governing authority shall review and set the salary for the next four-year term. Any change in the salary shall only become effective at the beginning of the next four-year term.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
I think we have a speaker on this particular subject.
I keep.
If you would, let's bring
Miss
that
Catherine, please come forward. I apologize again for the second time tonight, but I got so much papers right here trying to keep everything straight, and I even circled your name
That's okay.
on the agenda.
That's
I
fine.
apologize for the second time.
Okay. I won't say too much more, but I do have some statistics from 2008 from our council. I think it's important for the people to understand that the council members have, quote, a salary, but it's really not a salary. They're only part-time, so the legislature gives this to them. It's really to help reimburse on their expenses. But the parish also pays a substantial amount of money, and I'll let me hand this out to you and you can kind of look at it. The councilmen are allowed to travel to various conferences throughout the year, and their expenses are all paid. Their travel, their meals, their conference fees are all paid. So it's what they're getting, and then I had to kind of do this upside down so I could get it on one page. I did a comparison not just of the salary, but of the population and the budget of the parishes, their form of government, how many members they have on their council, and then a monthly allowance, as well as whether or not they allow the chairman to have an additional amount of money, because there was some discussion previously this year about increasing the reimbursements for the council, and the chairman has a substantial amount of travel that he does, and he felt like he might need to get a little bit more money. Some parishes do that. Then phone, that's whether or not they receive reimbursement for their telephone, for their internet, and we do in Ascension Parish. Then all the parishes allow the councilmen, if they're traveling or they're going outside the parish on business, they can get all those expenses reimbursed. And then as far as reimbursement inside the parish, East Baton Rouge is the only one that allows reimbursement inside the parish, but their salary is much lower. I think it's $800 a month. So that's for your consumption. And also on the other chart, which is larger, it gives you a breakdown of the different conferences that they went to, and each councilman, and includes the parish president, on what expenses they accrued over 2008. So just because they're getting, quote, a salary, they do have other benefits that they receive, and they can get their expenses reimbursed if it's related to their work. And I just wanted to share that with you, and thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Catherine. Any further discussion on this matter? I think we had a motion and a second and a vote.
We didn't have a vote.
We didn't? Okay. Any more discussion?
I'd just like to have the motion reread, please.
That's his.
Yeah.
Mr. Gregg?
The only motion so far was my motion to leave as
To leave
is.
as is.
But also open-ended to entertain any discussion. And I appreciate Mr. Bill's comments. And offer an amended motion to include his language which in essence says that they can't grant themselves a raise in their current term, that it would have to be voted on and effective in the next coming term.
Second.
In that effect.
That's not the language yet. He said he could only do it in the last year.
Yeah.
Third year.
Third year.
Well,
Whatever his language
it
is.
says during the third year of each 4-year term, the governing authority shall review and set the salary for the next 4-year term. Any change in the salary shall only become effective at the beginning of the next 4-year term.
And I will include that language in my motion.
Second.
Okay, now let's get this straight. Are you amending
Right.
your motion
Right.
to state what he just read?
To add that paragraph.
Add that paragraph. Do I have a second to the amendment of the motion?
Yes, second.
I have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Amendment passed to the motion. Now we vote on the original motion for Mr. Gregg.
No.
No.
I amended my own motion.
Well, you
That
okay.
motion
Man, I'm gone. I'm out tonight. He amended his motion. Okay, so then we can move on now to item.
Next agenda item.
Agenda item would be section 4-09, and that was deferred. And I thought that was Mr. Okay, open for discussion then.
Well, what was section 8?
We're on 4.09.
Motion to remove it.
Second.
Wait a minute, that might have been just this.
Yeah.
That would be counter to the other motion we passed earlier if we leave this.
I
This
do
is
have
just-
some
this is house
substitute
cleaning.
I have some substitute language for this section. But if you want to take this independently, I'm okay with that. If you want to strike what's there, and then I'll offer us some substitute language. So we have a motion.
By a favorable vote. The 2/3.
I can certainly withdraw my motion.
But we like. Well, I don't have a problem with if you want to strike the language in a motion, and then after that, if that's approved, then I'll offer a motion to substitute some language in this section.
Okay, that's great. I'm good with that. My motion stands then.
Second.
I'll second.
Any discussion on the motion? All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Mr. Dawson?
Okay, Mr. Chairman, I have the substitute motion here is to allow the council to have its own employees. Now, this section is deals with the governing authority with their, with what their duties are. So I would like to recommend that the council be able to hire their own employees by ordinance, and I have some language here that I'll read to you, and I apologize. It's fairly long. We would replace this article, section 409, instead of saying removal of department heads, say council employees. And A paragraph, the council may, by a vote of a majority of its members, appoint a secretary of the council who shall serve at the pleasure of the council. The duties shall be per ordinance. Paragraph B, the council may, by ordinance approved by 2/3 of its members, hire such other employees as may be necessary to assist the council in carrying out its legislative duties and responsibilities. Such employees shall serve at the pleasure of the council. Paragraph C, the council shall, by ordinance approved by 2/3 of its authorized membership, fix the salaries of its employees. The benefits for the employees shall be the same as other parish employees. Background on this is that, again, if you look at these other 6 charters, they all allow for the council to have their own employees. If you look at PAR's recommendations, PAR recommends that the council be allowed to have their own employees. Again, this is This is the forming this division between the administrative and legislative. If I interpret the current charter correctly, the secretary now is reports to the parish president. So the parish president sets the parish council's agenda and duties, and I think that they should have the ability to have their own employees. So if I didn't say I move that, then I do it this time.
I only have one question. It seems that I remember that we did do that at some point. We gave the, I don't know in what section, I think in another section we gave the council authority to hire its own secretary. Or at least we had some discussion about it. So if Mr. Shiver seems to remember the same thing, I think Mark remembers the same thing. So we need to get clarification before we move forward.
I know we had a discussion on it, but I'm not sure if we ever made any motions or anything about it. But
Correct.
We did discuss it at length.
05.
I didn't see. I reviewed the minutes. I didn't see any. I didn't see anything that was adopted that would allow.
Yeah.
I did see that you had. I think Mr. Hughes came to a meeting. He recommended this. Again, this is a recommendation of PAR also.
I would be happy to second that motion if it's not already been taken care of.
Yeah. Motion and second.
Just a minute. I'm like Miss Terry. I think we done already made a decision on that.
I thought it was under the...
Does anyone have what we did the first time available to them in front of them right now?
Unfortunately, I don't.
We're looking.
I have all the minutes. Is that what you?
Yes, I have the minutes too, but we don't know which month or which meeting of the minutes.
I think we ought to just go ahead, Mr. Milton, and interject it here. And if Lindsay and legal discover that we have put it in two places, then we can deal with it afterwards.
Again, we're going to have another bite of this apple in the entirety.
Yeah.
Suzanne, do you remember what? I remember us discussing this. Do you remember what meeting that was?
It wasn't in the minutes, so. No.
Well, everybody grab a minutes and let's just try to look through minutes and see what we did.
Chairman, I believe you discussed it, but you didn't make any. You didn't vote on anything. You didn't change anything, but it was discussed and no change was made. So I think we're starting with a fresh slate tonight. If you want to go ahead and make that motion and vote on the issue tonight.
The secretary.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Correct.
What this is, but
Mr. Bill, you talking about under section 409, huh? 4-09.
Correct.
Yeah.
Again, I think this is where this belongs because Section 4 is the governing authority. That's the section that deals with the governing authority. It may be somewhere else. I didn't see it. I looked through the minutes.
So in other words, you're saying let's strike what we have on 409.
You've already got a motion, and that's passed to strike the current language.
Right, and add. That's what I'm trying to get straight. In other words, strike. We struck out what it is right now, and we want to add A, B, and C.
That's correct.
We have a motion and a second.
And a second on that, adding A, B, and C. Okay. Any further discussion?
The agenda from August 6th was on there as Amendment 2. Authorize the council to appoint a secretary rather than having the council secretary appointed by the president.
Right.
That was on the agenda for the August 6th
That was.
meeting. Not sure what action.
Yeah.
Could even-
I do. All the
here,
six.
you know. But
I know we talked about it, but I don't know if we took any action.
but I don't have a problem with going with it like it is. I mean, it's,
Okay, we have a motion and a second on the floor to add
Suzanne, you want to see?
items A, B, and C. All in favor?
Aye.
So he's wanting to strike this out.
Yeah, we struck that out.
Yes, we said strike that out. And you just add A, B, and C. Which is what you just read.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
So we're changing the title of 409 from removal of department heads?
Exactly. The title will be council employees.
That's what I thought.
We just
I
reworking
apologize,
reworking the whole.
I didn't
Right.
run a copy for everybody, but
That-
Suzanne and
Yeah,
Mr.
that's
Cluett have
quite fine.
copies of that.
Does this contemplate any number of employees?
No, it's set by ordinance now. They can hire a secretary by a majority. Any other employees, it has to be a 2/3 for them to hire.
But it still does not contemplate any specific number of employees.
No.
Let's offer the vote again, please. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. And we'll have all this put in the proper form and read out.
A completed copy.
Completed copy for everybody on the last meeting so that we can all see it in front of us and vote. So let's move to section 4-12. Ms. Catherine.
That's it.
I'm not really sure what your discussion was in the past, but I do know that there was some question about whether the council should have any kind of supervisory role over their boards since they serve the pleasure of the parish president. And there was a question about whether this was, again, stepping across a line between legislative and executive. I believe that the boards at the present time are appointed by the council, and they have a personnel committee that reviews the applicants, and they are voted on at the council level. And so these are, even though they serve at the pleasure of the parish president, they're really council boards. And I think, I'm not going to use the word fair, I think to be consistent with our discussion that these boards, because they are council boards appointed by the council, that they should still have some oversight, even though they serve the pleasure of the parish president. Because the council members are part-time, and they do not have as much time to supervise and take care of these special boards. So I think that if we're going to be consistent, these are this is council legislative responsibility, even though the parish president is assisting with the boards, and I would not strike this from the charter. Thank you.
Thank you. Section 4-12 was put by committee and appointed Ms. Terry
Yes, sir.
as the committee. So please give us your report.
Our conclusion was that that this probably should be left as is. The boards are appointed by the council. To my knowledge, they don't serve at the pleasure of the parish president. They serve at the pleasure of the parish council. They are appointed by them, by their personnel committee. the parish president has minimal involvement with them. And one of the reasons that there was even any discussion about it was about the budgetary issues, and if there were a way in this section to improve the language. But we are at a loss for how to do that, and so we would recommend that it remain as is.
Are you offering that as a motion?
That's just my report. I can offer it as a motion. I'd love to see some discussion, because I think Mr. Dawson might have some discussion.
Let's offer it as a motion. We get a second.
I'm giving you the opinion of the group of us that talked about it, but we have not had the privilege of some information that perhaps can be shared with us by other members of this commission.
Any discussion? Mr. Bill.
You know, this again was one of Parish's recommendations, was to move this under the president. And, you know, I assume, and the reason for this is to provide clear lines. So what this, of course, is in Section 4, which is in the governing authority, and it says the governing authority's duties are to provide, along with the president, budgetary ... So what you have here is under this current language, you have this co-authority. So you have the governing authority along with the president. So when you look for somebody to point a finger at, you can't find them. I mean, I'm not strongly opinionated one way or another. I think it would be clearer language if it were moved under the duties of the president. And the president, since he has all of these budgetary, fiscal, he has all of these responsibilities anyway, then this would just provide him with more responsibility in that area, and again, it's an opportunity to hold him responsible for his duties as over budgetary and fiscal matters.
I agree with you, Mr. Dawson. Personally, I don't understand how anybody can do anything along with somebody else.
Yeah.
How can the council provide control along with the president? That is a direct conflict. It cannot be done. And personally, I'd like to see it moved, changed, but I do not know what the language would be.
The recommendation from APAR was to move this to Section 501B9, and then you would just strike out along with the president, and that would put this responsibility under the president. You'll check me on that.
Right, that's my notes.
Yeah.
Said that we discussed moving it to 5.01- and make a number 9 under B.
I think that was my recommendation at that time, and I'm happy with that recommendation. I just have to tell you what my committee came up with. I've got a different opinion, so I would like to see it moved. So if I'm not sure where we are.
You're very correct, Mr. Gregg. We did discuss moving it to that section. Ben, did you get your report, Mr. Moore?
Just a question on that. I don't know how it may tie into the way this section was written, but some of the boards and commissions are, by state law, have to be set by the council, and the council and only the council determines the members of the board. And I don't know, I guess what I'm asking, maybe we might want Ms. Manda to look further into it so we don't step onto anything, but I would think the council inherently then is responsible for the monies that are handled by those commissions or board. Not all of them. This groups a lot of stuff into one thing here. It might could be separated out, but I'm willing to listen to whatever y'all had to say. My only concern would be if we change something there that's granted by state statute or something for the council to be involved in overseeing that or responsible for it, then can we take it away from them?
Mr. Porsche?
Mark, I agree with you. I had that same concern that if we lump everything together, we may be acting prematurely. I think that although conceptually I don't have any problem with it, I just would hate to do anything that we would that's clear by either state law or whatever that we would be trying to override that, and I don't think we have the power to do that.
Chairman, I might suggest you could say except as otherwise provided by state law, and then
That would cover
yes,
any provisions by the state.
yes.
There you go.
I offer that amendment to the motion.
All right. Any further discussion? All in favor?
I'd like to
Excuse me, Mr.
I'd like to
Porsche.
restate the motion, please.
Okay.
You want me to? Or you want?
Yeah. Is this it, Mr.
You go ahead, Mr. Dawson. You're
Dawson?
more eloquent than I am.
Okay. Well, provide budgetary, fiscal, and other controls over all special boards, commissions, agencies, districts, or any other device having governmental functions which it or its predecessor has created it to ensure the maximum possible coordination of government at the local level in Ascension Parish. So this is the current wording, and then add Ms. Manda's except as, I've forgotten now, except as otherwise provided by the state law. So this is the current language under the duties of the governing authority. When you move it over to the duties of the president, you just strike that one phrase along with the president.
It would go under him completely.
That's correct. So you're moving this duty to exclusively to the president rather than something that's shared with the council and the president.
Unless
That
state
would be
law.
except where state law would say the
Exactly.
governing authority has to do that.
Okay.
And I would remind the commissioners, too, that the council has oversight. They have the authority to investigate any board or commission, and that should solve any concerns that anyone has that a board would be operating without oversight.
Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Now we take up 4-12K. I don't know what that's in there.
Well, it might need, now that we've moved J out of that section, it might take a little more detail and descriptive. I think K is right where it needs to be. It kind of covers the part that we said unless otherwise provided for by state law. This is where the council falls in, where there are some duties they'll be bound to adhere to.
So this will just really remain in as is?
Just becomes J.
Right. That is all I'm saying is we've now added a clause to J and moved it under the parish president, but we're leaving it open-ended that they're going to be. J acknowledges that there'll be some specific duties that the governing authority will have to do, and so K becomes J and just reinforces that is what I'm saying.
Let's make a motion on
that. I second that
second
motion.
to move K to J. Any discussion on that motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion against? Motion passed.
Is it descriptive enough as is, or does it need to have that wording saying that they're there to oversee budgetary, fiscal, and other controls or other acts, so that we at least know what we're talking about here? We're referencing budgetary and fiscal responsibility.
We take it out
anymore because we took that.
We took it out.
Away from them.
Took it away from them. We can't put it back in there.
Unless it's state law.
Unless state law provides for it, is what I'm saying. And that's what this says.
Yeah.
Stay consistent with state law.
Okay. We're just moving K to J.
Okay.
Okay. The next thing on the agenda will be
413.
item 413. It was deferred.
Mr. Chairman, that was deferred, if you can recall, because of the fact that it was, it gives them the authority to expropriate property outside the parish.
Yeah, what's that?
Yeah, and I think Ms. Manda clarified that for us. Lindsay, do you want to share that?
Yes, I researched the issue and I couldn't find that this was contrary to state law, constitution, or otherwise. So I would recommend
Leave it.
to
leave
leave
it
it the same.
Motion.
Motion on to leave it it is.
Second.
Second. Discussion on the motion.
It still doesn't make sense to me. I don't understand it. I mean, can you go outside? Can they go and expropriate property in East Panama Parish?
Well, I can give you a practical example right now. The parish prison that the parish is currently building, part of the land for the sewer pipe is in St. James.
Yeah.
So some of the research that I did indicated that we could enter into an intergovernmental agreement with St. James and expropriate property that way, with their concurrence. So that's
With the governmental agreement first.
yes.
Not,
But at least this gives us some legal authority in the charter to say, okay, we can go ahead and do this if you agree with us.
I say more power to them.
It seemed odd to me, too, but
very strange.
I wouldn't want it to be my problem.
I don't see why they couldn't.
Worst case scenario, St. James will come over here and expropriate your property.
If memory serves me correct, they've recently done that over there on the West Bank. They've recently acquired what for years had been a part of Ascension Parish is now
They did that by court decree.
right.
Court decree, not just appropriate.
Right, I understand.
That's the difference.
Well, when you expropriate, a judge does order the expropriation. It's a hearing, and there's a judgment in favor of the governing body or the governmental entity. So,
Ms. Manda, can I ask you a question? What is your suggestion on this? To leave it as it
I
is?
would leave it the same. And if for some reason in years to come this is found to be unconstitutional or otherwise illegal, the severability clause that we have built in the charter would save us on that. So,
Going to the next.
yeah, we had a motion and a
Motion to
second.
leave it as it is.
Motion. Second. Oh, then we don't already voted on it.
Yes.
We voted on it and everything. Okay, next item on the agenda is going to be section 4-21C. Open for discussion. Ms. Manda, we had deferred that. I have in my notes here for you to give us a legal opinion on this. I think this is something Mark asked for. No? I may be mistaken. Would you give us, we had given you a thing to give us a legal opinion on this one.
Mr. Kluat, this isn't in my notes, and I apologize. I did not research this issue, nor am I familiar with what the question was.
Okay, any vacancy?
I can refresh your memory. We want to add language in there that the person appointed would not be eligible to run for that particular office.
Once. Yes, once. Okay.
Well, I'll be happy to research that, and I have all of your contact information, so I can research the issue and send that information.
This has been already adopted, is that not correct?
Yeah, I thought
This language has already been adopted.
Right. This was just for her to look up the legal.
They elected to bring it back up with the legal portion of
Right,
it.
no, I understand. But they don't need, you don't need any
But
motion.
that was the
or
reason that
anything.
we had sent it to legal. But that language was adopted.
Okay. And you didn't, from your best, you never did research it, Miss, or you didn't get a chance to.
Right. Not that I recall.
Okay, then let's
Leave as is unless you find...
unless you find something contradictory to what we're trying to do here, of what motion that we had passed before. Okay. This was...
B.
Okay.
B.
502.
502.
Yeah.
Okay. Next item on the agenda is going to be section 5-02. It was deferred. Section, paragraph
2.
Let's see. 502.
Paragraph 2.
It was paragraph 2.
Yeah.
Open for discussion.
I think we kind of.
There was a substitute motion here. Was there a substitute motion, or was this just deferred?
It was just deferred.
Yeah, my note says defer.
Deferred. Yeah, my notes have it here too as deferred.
I think there was some concern, if I may, about what would happen to 2 once some decisions were made on some other sections. So that's probably the light in which we need to be looking at this one, and it may be perfectly fine the way it is.
I don't think so.
Well, yes, I have just plain deferred. Any further discussion on item 2?
For the life of me, I can't remember exactly why.
I have it on my notes here. It was just deferred. We didn't do anything. We didn't act on it or do anything. We deferred it. We talked about it, but then we deferred it to take it up at this particular moment.
I think it was just all tied in with the rest of the stuff.
I think so too. I think Mark's right. I think
2/3 and
right. I think you're very correct.
Fire and who had the authority, but I think we decided that earlier. So
Second.
Okay, so a motion to remain. A second. Discussion on the motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passed. Next item. 5-04B. Open for discussion. Ms. Terry, this is an item that you requested to be put on the agenda. Can
Yes.
you,
The request was to remove reside in the parish. The request was to remove being a licensed attorney who has resided and practiced law in this parish.
No, we're talking about the review board.
no, we're talking about
it's human resources.
Yeah.
502.
Yeah.
I'll say that we had that already.
Yeah.
Hey,
Okay.
believe me, it's get
Yes,
complicated,
I'll say
Mr.
it.
Boucher. Going back and forth with all this is so.
Yes.
I can sympathize with you because I've been doing it all night. Okay, it's
Mr. Poche and
section
I,
504, section 5-04, Human Resource B. Ms. Terry, you had asked this to be put on there. Would you
Yes.
give us a little report?
I'll be happy to.
Thank you.
And I may have to beg this board to defer this section again. I've been trying to research review boards, and I've run up against some stumbling blocks. I'm concerned about the makeup of the review board for the Human Resources Department. It has been brought to my attention that in this modern world of human resources, there are lots of legal positions that just have to be met. And I am afraid that we have the potential for an unqualified person sitting on this review board because of the way they're appointed. I also have a feeling that in one of the sections, and I don't know which one it is because I haven't flipped a page here yet, but I think it's in C2. Yes, it's C2. Can we discuss that one at all at this point, because it has a direct bearing on B? I'm asking permission now.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Let's go right ahead.
Okay. We ruled in a previous meeting that the parish president would have the final authority, and that in the employment of personnel, once the decision was made that they needed to be terminated, then the parish president had final authority. I've gotten uncomfortable with that, and I am concerned that and I've looked at other charters, and what they have is where the review board has the final authority. Completely takes, in the opinion of some other parish presidents, the politics out of it. The council doesn't have the final authority. They can't reinstate anybody. The president doesn't have final authority. The review board has final authority. But in order to pass that responsibility on to a review board, that review board has to have certain qualifications to make sure that they are in line with federal ERISA laws. It gets a little complicated, and I'm worried right now that we're not in a position to make a decision on this section. We're undereducated. So I would like to ask that this commission give me another meeting to do a little more work on what ought to be here.
Fellow commissioners, are y'all in?
5.0, that would move all to defer everything under 5-04. Is that correct?
At this time, why don't we do this? If she's asking for, she's spent a lot of time researching this, and you're talking about section 504B,
A, B, C, and D.
All of
A, B, and C, and D.
Right. Yeah, Mr. Poche and I have spent a good bit of time on this, and we're of like mind on it in some ways, and I think we can come to
A, B, and C.
a good recommendation if we can just get a little more time.
I move that we postpone the discussion of paragraph 5-04 to the next meeting.
I'll second.
We have a motion on the floor to defer agenda item section 5-04B.
The whole section, 5-04.
Okay. Okay, that would be A, B, and C, D, and E.
Yeah.
Okay. We have a motion and a second on the floor that we defer section 5-04, A, B, C, D, and E for further research and
But the motion is to defer it to the next meeting.
Defer to give Ms. Cascio some more chance to research this and come back to this board. I have a second?
Yes.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ms. Terry,
Yes, sir.
I think I have the right to appoint a subcommittee. Do you need someone to help you on this?
Mr. Poche's been working with me on it. We'd be happy to have another person.
I think Mr. O'Shea's working on it. Anybody want to volunteer to work with these two people on this particular item? Then subcommittee is still in your hands, Ms. Terry.
Mr. Dawson said he'd help us.
He'll help you out? Well, I just now appointed Mr. Dawson with you, so y'all got it. Okay. But let's keep everything in mind. If we feel that by deferring this item, which I have no problem with it, I need to know because our ordinance says that we have to be finished by April the 1st.
We'll know by the next meeting.
Okay.
We'll be good
The
with
next meeting. Now, what we got to take in consideration, I know it might be a little bit off the agenda right now, but we have to take in consideration that the secretary and legal has quite a bit of work to make up a final draft. And here we are basically at the end of February, so that's just March. Now,
That means we got a meeting, what, next week?
well, I'm going to make a suggestion. When it comes up to the last agenda item, but I'd like everybody to keep that in mind when we start deferring. I don't want us to make a decision if we don't know nothing about it, because then it would defeat our purpose of being here. So I'm asking y'all to not set on looking up the information you need and getting back with this board. We'll set up another meeting to get back and review that. I sure would appreciate it, Ms. Terry.
I appreciate
Mr. Poche and Mr. Bill. I sure appreciate it.
We will work as quickly as we possibly can. I just want to make you aware that sometimes it's hard to get a lot of help from the state when you start calling around wanting to know how should we do this. But I had the offer today of a meeting with the Human Resources Director at ETEL, which is a fairly sizable corporation, and one of which we're familiar. And if the Human Resource Director there can maybe help us a little bit as far as what the legal issues are, because they have to know.
Yes, ma'am.
It might help me to not have to try to find this out from the state, because finding it out from the state is getting kind of complicated as far as human resources are concerned. And then Miss Manda can be of help to us as well.
Yes, I was just going to make a suggestion that y'all consult with Miss Manda. She may be able to help y'all and steer you in a little bit of direction.
Human resources has just become a very specialized field. People go to college, get a 5-year degree, or it takes them 5 years to get a degree in human resources. It has become very complicated. And I think this whole section needs a look-see from some professionals. Well, I'm certainly not qualified, and so I need guidance, and I appreciate these other gentlemen.
You got it. Run with it, young lady. Next agenda item is going to be Section 8-08, the official journal. I was asked by the parish president to have this committee look at this particular item or this particular paragraph, and in it he asked me if it says where the publication office physically be located in Ascension Parish. He has asked that we strike Ascension Parish. He has asked that we look at it because he's having trouble publishing the official journal, or I shouldn't say that. Wait, let me back up. He's having trouble in trying to get other resources to publish some stuff in it, and he asked that we take out Ascension Parish. Do you have any discussion on this?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Ms. Poche.
I think legal was supposed to get back to us on this and give us our legal definition of what state law in reference to parishes having to, if you have a local paper, to put your legal in your local paper or something to that language?
Mr. Poche, I don't recall being asked to research this, but I certainly will and let you know what I find.
Is there not a requirement that if you have a paper in your parish that you have to utilize it, the one with the largest population or whatever the language is? There's some state language in reference to that, and it states that you shall use that as your legal publication.
There very well may be, but I'm not aware of such a provision.
I think you're right.
Okay, let's do
there is some language, and I'm not familiar with it. I don't want to try to tell this commission what it states. I just know there is such a thing, and I don't know what it means.
Ms. Manda, would you do this for this commission? I would like for you to take items or Section 8-08 and research it, and the parish president has asked us to strike out Ascension Parish. Can you research this to see if by taking that out, then are we crossing the lines and breaking a state law or not compliant with a state law? Would you research that and give it back to us at the next meeting, please, ma'am?
Yes.
Thank you.
Because I don't have any problem with the suggestion. I'm only stating that I would like to at least know what the law is in reference to that before we make a decision on it.
Well, I fully agree with you, Mr. Poche. We're going to let Ms. Manda handle Section 8-08 and get back to us at the same time with Ms. Terry.
That's why it was deferred last time, to get a legal opinion on that.
Okay. We're going to move on to the next item on the agenda, would be Section 9-01. These items were asked to be put on by Mr. Bill Dawson. I'm going to turn the floor over to him and let him take over. We're going to start with Article 4, Section 4-05B, Governing Authority Meeting. Mr. Bill.
Okay. Let me find my notes here.
Where we at? 05?
Yes, sir. Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry.
What about Section 9-01, origination?
Oh, we fixed that.
Oh.
That's what we did.
That's what I was under the impression, that everything that Mr. Dawson...
No, you have a 9-01 on there.
We sure do. Okay, let's back up a minute. I was under the impression that's... Okay. Let's back up to section 9-01 and give it to Mr. Bill.
No, I didn't put in 9-01.
Mr. Chairman, I don't think that's his, but I believe at one of our previous meetings we went through Section 9 and everything was agreed upon staying the same according to what I have here. And with that in mind, I'd move that we leave 901 as it is.
That's what we made an amendment to 901, and we added the language that they were going to have a charter review every 10 years.
Oh, that's right. That's right. It fell under there. Yeah.
901. That's what it was.
With that in there, I would second the motion.
Move as the current wording is.
I think we had a motion to change that to say that. My records show that we did that and made that change, but we also had something where we may have to add a under there if we did something else.
I just have a record of reviewing it every 10 years. I have that on my notes.
All right, then.
The minutes say, this is what I have the minutes saying, a mandatory review of the home rule charter shall be established with a frequency to be determined.
Mm-hmm. That's what we talked. Okay, that's the reason why we have it on this.
Yeah.
On here now. That's okay. I have my notes right here, and that's what it says. Okay. All right. Let's open the meeting up. It's open for.
Mr. Chairman, in abundance of caution, I make that in form of a motion.
Second.
We have a motion on the floor. Any discussion on the motion?
Mr. Poche, is that a mandatory review? Is that what?
Yeah. Yes, mandatory review. Every 10 years, if I'm not mistaken.
That's correct.
Yeah.
That would go to 901.
So that's an A under 901, just like we said?
That's correct. It's A.
That's an A.
I don't know. They'll have to figure that out.
No discussion.
Please vote.
Let's vote.
All opposed? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Okay.
Nay. Okay, let's go now to section Article 4, Section 4-05B. Mr. Bill, you have the floor.
Well, I only had a question here. This is the words extraordinary emergency are used here. There, as far as I look through the charter, there's no definition of this, and in section 6-04, the words public emergency is used. I don't have, this is one of them, I don't have some canned language to throw in here, but I just, I have this question of, does extraordinary emergency, does that have a definition in that's a consistent definition? How do you know what that is?
I don't know, Mr. Bill. I don't know. I don't think anybody up here, if you know how to explain what it is, please let me know. But I don't know if anybody.
Well, what I'm
would know
wondering
what an
is
extraordinary.
within the code somewhere, is there a definition of this term?
No, sir.
No, not that we knew. No, not that we know of.
Mr. Bill, I can give you my personal observation. I think it was like a catch-all. Because if you start specifically listing them, you certainly list out the one that's an emergency that's not listed. So extraordinary would, in fact, cover those that you couldn't think of to list.
Well,
That's
I
my
think,
interpretation.
yeah, I understand. Now, some of the charters that I did review, they had a definition section in there, and they actually defined what these frequently used terms are. It's just my thought here, and again, I'm new to all this, but this is where you're going to waive notice here. So that it should be something that's exemplary here. That they don't have a chance. The public is not going to be notified of these meetings, and so I think we have to be very careful of this. That we know what this definition is.
Can I make a comment? I would also like to see some definition, and I would also like to see here, and we discussed this originally, I'd like to see the charter state that it must be stated what the emergency is. And the charters that I've looked at in our neighboring parishes all contain the language, the emergency must be stated, what it is.
Stated in the charter.
No, it must be stated in the, whenever they have this meeting, they must state what the emergency is. So I'm in.
Oh, yes, okay.
I tried.
Emergency is, but listing the emergencies is impossible.
I mean, I agree. You know, and then you have public emergency in 6-04. So what's the difference? And here I think you amended this to state that you have to state the reason for the emergency.
405 remain. Have it remain. 405B remain. Yep. 405
I don't remember if I got shot down on that or not. I wanted it,
we went.
I might have gotten shot down.
You didn't win that one.
I didn't win.
What it says.
No, a previous
You didn't win that one.
recommendation on that was to remain as is.
Yeah, I think that's because I got shot down.
Yeah.
I would really like to see us state the emergency, and certainly I'm willing to look for some language that defines it better if we need be.
I guess, you know, for the interest of making a stab at this, you know, I would say that we would add this language to state the emergency, the reason for the emergency. So in the case of extraordinary emergency, I don't know what, is there a regular emergency or?
I don't know.
In the case of extraordinary emergency, which
So basically,
the reason shall be stated, such notice shall not be required. That's a stab at adding a phrase in there to get the...
Well, what we're talking about, let's keep in mind what we're talking about.
Yes.
In case of, at a special meeting, only matters specified in that call shall be considered. In the case of an extraordinary emergency, such notice shall not be required. That's the only thing it's stating there.
Mm-hmm. Right, so you're going to have a meeting of the council without any notice.
No.
That's what this says to me.
I'm interpreting it where it says, at a special meeting, only matter specified in the call shall be considered.
And then that's the end of that special meeting.
Okay,
Now
well
you
then
talk
wouldn't it be a special meeting if it's an extraordinary emergency? That would be a special meeting. Wouldn't that be considered a special meeting?
Well, if it is, such notice is not required.
As deemed appropriate and circumstances permit.
Yeah. I mean, I could add, I don't know, Amanda, can you maybe read it? But what it tells me is that at these extraordinary, at a meeting called in an extraordinary emergency, there's no notice required.
That's what it says.
Special meeting shall be open to the public. I think, I don't know, Miss Mann,
When we notice,
I think we have everything in there.
when we notice a meeting, we comply with the open meetings law. So the notice of the meeting has to be posted at least 24 hours in advance of the meeting, along with that agenda. So,
But this is going to waive, this sentence, if I read it correctly, waives that notice.
Correct.
only in extraordinary emergencies. Your
There you go.
doors, you know, alarm goes off. I mean,
Hey, I don't know what an extraordinary emergency is.
the public emergencies that affect health, safety, and welfare.
Well, now, if it said public emergency, that would be, you know, I would feel more comfortable with that. But an extraordinary emergency to the council might not be a public emergency.
You might want to make that a public emergency.
I'd like to see them consistent.
So I'd like to see it consistent. I'd like to say it. I like public emergency. Mark might be able to contribute something on that, but I definitely think it needs to be stated.
Mr. Bill, let me ask you a question. You researched other charters. What did they have in their?
No, I'm sorry. I did not research this. This part.
All right, Mr. Moore. I believe Ms. Terry's wanting you to give us a.
I don't know, but I don't know where the big hang-up is. I'm not sure. Just other than we've got a different word called an extraordinary emergency. But, I mean, it doesn't say they don't have to give notice. It just said notice is not required. But it does say that, however, notice shall be given as it deems appropriate and circumstances permit. So it's not but again, they can only deal with what they would be dealing with in that extraordinary emergency. But as far as the definition, kind of like Mr. Poche said, maybe extraordinary is that catchword that catches everything that you can't possibly think about.
Well, I mean, you can't list everything.
For every emergency. I mean, a public emergency would be, I think in that section is kind of defined fairly clearly as what falls under that. But there's that always extraordinary or that one thing that you didn't think about that could create a emergency situation where the governing authority would need to meet.
Storm,
to conduct could conduct business for the parish.
Train overturns, got chemicals on it.
You know, I mean, after Gustav, I mean, unless somebody would have went around to every house delivering a piece of paper, there's no way they could have gave notice. Nobody had TV, possibly radio, but nobody had power to listen to most of them. So I don't know if extraordinary is just a catchword to.
On this. I mean, I'm not.
Let me ask you something, Mr. Bill, if you don't mind. You had mentioned earlier that they had some definitions of extraordinary emergencies in other charters. If I'm wrong, I thought I heard you say that.
No. Well, they have.
Can you tell me what they said?
No, they have definitions.
They have a definition.
I'm excuse me then. Can you give me a definition of it?
I don't know. That's going to take a while. If Mark is comfortable with this and everybody else is comfortable with it, I'm just asking the question. Is it, I think that we just have to be very cautious about having a meeting without the notice. And I assume that the state law probably addresses that anyway, so it may not be, worth talking about.
Okay, then let's move to the next section.
I would just like to see the verbiage included that the emergency must be stated.
I don't think that's a big deal. I don't have an issue with that saying.
That's not. To me, that's not hard.
Well, it's kind of covered in the first sentence.
Yeah, let's see. Let's go back to.
And I wish I had my other charters with me. I didn't bring them this time, but there is a spot where they include that.
Or the members calling the meeting shall state the purpose of the meeting.
Well, they must. That might cover it, but they're not stating what the emergency is.
No.
So I guess maybe it's just semantics. So I'm good with it.
Well, I think probably the good news here is, again, it's a situation where I personally don't think it's broke. I appreciate Mr. Bill's concern because it is pretty open-ended when you have language like that in there. But I can't recall of very many instances where they've had to call special or emergency meetings. That was anything other than a meeting that needed to be called. I don't think we have rampant abuse or closed meetings going on that we don't know about. And in that reference, I would say that we're probably okay like we are.
If I had a motion, I withdraw it.
I don't think you had a motion.
Okay.
I think you were just checking.
I don't need to withdraw.
We'll move on to the next one. The next
we
one.
have this, okay, and it's stated. Is everybody comfortable?
I'm good with that. Somehow I missed that, so I apologize for even causing the discussion.
Hey, you got so much going on here. You got so much papers back and forth. It's very easy, believe me, to get across. Next section is 412E.
That's what I was thinking.
Powers in general.
Which one is that?
Powers in general. 4, 6, and 12.
Ms. Manda, may I have just a moment, Mr. Chairman? Are we going to be looking at 604?
No, he made mention of 604 in reference.
Right. That's the same one which states the emergency.
Right.
That was the area. Ms. Manda must have had better notes than I did. That was the one that I was very concerned it's about an emergency ordinance. So I don't guess we can discuss it in this meeting.
No, I think we need to try and stick with what's on this agenda.
So we will need to add this to the agenda of our next meeting, please, because I would really like to go back to that one.
Which one is that, ma'am?
604. Thank you, Lindsay, for reminding me.
Since we do have to have another meeting at any rate, if you would, Madam Secretary, add that to the agenda.
And I would like to ask the commissioners to consider, when they look at that and study it between now and the next meeting, that I think it's important that if there is a public emergency ordinance being done, that it be stated what the emergency is.
Okay, next.
412E.
12E.
If I read the minutes correctly, this was modified to add the sentence, board members will cease to serve on the date the term expires unless reappointed by the governing authority. Now, this is advisory boards and commissions.
That's correct.
So
And I think I had sent this out on an email earlier, but you know, I've had some personal experience with this, and for example, in 2008, when the council term expired, they did not reappoint certain boards and commissions. They left that to the new council. Those were not reappointed until about March of 2000 and I might have my years wrong. 2007 and it was 2007 and 2008 when the new council came into the new office. So, for example, the Fire District Number 1 board, had this been in place, would not have been able to meet from January through March. You know, I understand the reasons, and I understand that we're trying to get the council to make these appointments, but when you have these appointments that coincide with the term of a council, for like we did in 2007, the lame duck council did not want to make appointments for the new council, and so they postponed that. So I would like to hear the other discussion on that. And
Bill, doesn't these boards have staggering terms where the whole board would not be out at one time?
That's correct. But if you took the Fire District Board, for example, it's only a 5-member board. So you have 3 one year and 2 the next. So you can't have a quorum if the 3 are in that year. And then it leaves us just like we are today. Even if you had the 2 expiring and it took 3 to make a quorum, if one person's absent, they can't conduct business. Mm-hmm. I think it would, a lot of these boards and commissions are, they don't have day-to-day responsibilities, but some of them do, and this is one that does, and it would worry me.
In other words, it's sort of like this commission right here, with a deadline, and we already skipped 2 months without meeting, so I can sympathize with what you say. I agree with you 100% there. We need to do something, and I don't know what we need to do, but we need to do something.
If at the pleasure of the commission, I would offer that be replaced to say, if a board or commission member's term has expired by at least 30 days, then the president shall have the right to reappoint the member or appoint a replacement member to this position. So that would give that, if the council, and maybe we can play with this 30 days if you guys want to make that 60 or whatever you want. I'm open to that. But what that would do is if the council doesn't make those appointments, then the president could make them.
Would that include a board? In other words, sort of like this board here,
Yep.
In other words, if we're supposed to have 13 members on this board and we're fighting every meeting to get a quorum,
that would be covered by all advisory boards or commissions.
Okay.
Well, again, what I said earlier, you might want to put in there, except as provided by in state law, because some commissions are created by the state, how it's done through the Secretary of State's office, and the council, governing authority is the ones that appoint them. I don't know that whether they do it or not, the parish president could step up and put, I don't know. I mean, again, that'd just be something that might need to be answered before.
I don't mind adding that language. I mean, if we want to add in here, except as prohibited by state law, or however
governed,
you want to put it.
Except as governed by state law.
Leave that to Ms. Manda. But you know, I'm trying to work some compromise here. I think it's good that we put some pressure that they reappoint the boards and commissions. However, I'm concerned that we'll cause a problem here with them being able to obtain a quorum.
What about the same type of language that's used at where the parish would have the authority if one of the members was to resign? They have the responsibility of appointing someone to serve. Failure to do so within a certain time frame, then the governor can appoint someone. So you could use the same language.
Well,
I mean, the same scenario. The parish council would have 30 days to, after the end of their appointment, to reappoint someone, or failure to do so could be appointed by the president. Is that the type of language you're looking for?
That's it, exactly. But that's exactly what I'm trying to say here.
I think that's an even better way to discipline the council than what we had originally come up with.
In that way, I think the parish councilman, the parish president, he's on a day-to-day activity of the business on a day-to-day basis, so he would be ready and available to really have
now,
someone to appoint it.
What the language says, it doesn't say he has to make that appointment. It says he shall have the right to make that appointment. So, you know, it doesn't force him to make the appointment, but it does give him the right to make it.
That might give him the opportunity to go to that councilman and say, look, you either make an appointment to this board or I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
So moved. Do we have a motion to that effect?
Yeah.
So moved.
Second.
I want to ask one question before we go on. If we're still in discussion. Correct me if this is not, maybe I don't have this exactly straight, but I think on some of these situations, don't they have to advertise for the position?
Yeah.
And I'm concerned that the 30-day period, the advertisement, the candidates, because they're screened by the by parish board. Which board is that? The Personnel committee. No, I don't think it's personnel committee. One of them does it. I'm just concerned that they would have the time frame involved with 30 days.
The council.
Well, you know, the way it's supposed to work is, let's say that let's say that your term expires in December, then personnel is supposed to advertise that in November or October. They're supposed to interview prior to that and then bring that to the council in December. Now, you know, this won't change any of that. You know, but they still gives them, this still gives them that yeah.
I'm just saying that we have to remember that time frame has to fit into that. You got a motion?
Vote. All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Next item, section 5. Okay. Mr. Bushy?
Does that take the language out that we had put in earlier?
My motion was to replace the current language that you.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just want to be clear.
Yeah. I hate to do this. I have another, just another question about this section.
What, 5-03?
No, 412E.
E, okay. Yes, ma'am.
And I just would like to hear the commission's thoughts on this, and we talked about this a little bit earlier, where these boards and commissions, they're appointed by the governing authority, and they report to the president. Most of the charters that I reviewed, they allow the council to have an advisory board or commission to report to them. Now, I'm not...
Mr. Bill, I'm not trying to interrupt, but I think in the ordinance that created this board tells us who we have to report to.
Well, if you look at this charter, it says right here, members of advisory board and commission shall be appointed and or removed by the parish governing authority, but shall report to the parish president. So that doesn't really give them an option, if I'm reading this correctly. What I'm thinking here is there should be an option where if the council had needed a board or commission to report to them, they could have that option. I think in practice probably they do report. I don't know where they actually report, but to me this is fairly explicit that these boards and commissions are report to the president.
And so are you asking that we change it, that they report to the governing authority instead?
No, I'm asking to consider that that language such as and shall report to either the president or the governing authority per authorizing ordinance, which I think is what we thought it said. So when they made the ordinance, so when they passed the ordinance creating these advisory boards and commissions, then within the ordinance it's pointed out who they report to.
Still the same place.
Or should it say then, but shall report to those persons as deemed by the ordinance?
Yeah, so I mean my words are and shall report to either the parish president or the governing authority per authorizing ordinance. Now maybe that's not clear. If you want to, somebody wants to clarify that, but what the intent is that the ordinance would specify who these boards and commissions, who they report to.
And are we just discussing what you're saying, or are you offering it as a motion to change it? I mean, we don't go.
I'll offer it as a motion. Okay, here's my motion. That
okay, wait a minute. Let's get some.
Okay.
Yeah.
But to strike out the words "but shall report to the parish president" and replace those words with "and shall report to either the president or the governing authority per authorizing ordinance."
Do we have a second?
Second.
Got a second. We discussed it a good bit. Any more discussions on the motion? Nope. All in favor?
Aye.
Against? Motion passed. Next item, Mr. Bill.
Y'all got that down there?
She's got a copy of it.
Okay.
Okay, next item is going to be 5-03, B.
Okay, and again, maybe Miss Amanda can help me with this, but when I read this, B, it says, I think there's a motion that's been adopted. It says the full-time parish attorney shall be a licensed attorney who has practiced law for at least 5 years immediately preceding his appointment with no residency restrictions. I just asked, should that be licensed in the state of Louisiana?
Yes.
Okay. So I'll offer a motion to insert the words "in the state of Louisiana" between attorney and who, to make the sentence read, the full-time parish attorney shall be a licensed attorney in the state of Louisiana who has practiced law for at least 5 years immediately preceding his appointment with no residency restrictions. And maybe that
Second.
Second. Discussion on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed. Next section will be 6-05. Mr. Bill.
Again, maybe you guys have read this differently than myself, but when I read this, I see no provisions for an ordinance to be adopted if it's neither signed or vetoed. Believe me, I went through this several times. I understand that perhaps there's been a ruling here. I was told this, that there was a ruling that has I don't have the right term here, but there's been a ruling that's stated that if an ordinance is not signed or vetoed by the president, then it will be enacted. But I would like to propose that we revise Article 6, Section 6-05, and to add a sentence: if the proposed ordinance is not signed or vetoed by the president within 10 days after receipt, it shall be considered adopted and shall become effective as provided in Section 6-02.
Is that a motion?
That's a motion.
Second.
Got a motion? Got a motion, a second on the floor. Discussion on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passed. Next item will be Section 7-01E. Mr. Bill.
Maybe somebody can shed some light on this for me. I got confused reading this, to be honest with you. I think I understand the intent is that when the president is responsible for projecting either overages or shortages, the president reports that to the council. The council, through a resolution, agrees with that, and then they make the appropriate changes to the budget. However, when I read this, it's difficult for me to follow, and this paragraph at the bottom that says, it says the president shall report to the governing authority without delay, indicating the estimated amount of the deficit, which that's clear. I don't have a problem with that. But then the second paragraph says, furthermore, when the governing authority projects an accumulated deficit for the fund as evidenced by a majority vote of the governing authority shall amend the budget of such fund to prevent the accumulated deficit. If that's clear to everyone, then I'm okay. It wasn't clear to me if, for example, does the parish president does he have to be the initiator of this, or can the council also initiate this?
Ms. Manda, would you please rule on that for us?
President shall, go for paragraph 1.
Yeah. The president shall report to the governing authority without delay. However, the second paragraph says, when the governing authority projects an accumulated deficit for a fund.
I agree. I believe that the parish president and the council can both propose these budget amendments.
Okay.
And that's done by ordinance because the budget is adopted by ordinance, so any amendment to.
So this does not have to initiate at the parish president. It can be initiated at the governing authority.
Right.
That's how I read it, yes.
So
I mean, if that's clear to everybody else, I'm okay with it. It wasn't necessarily clear to me.
okay. Everybody satisfied with it?
Yes.
Next item will be section 7-04, security bonds.
I thought this was a little bit broad in that it says any member of the governing authority or employee of the parish having financial responsibility shall be bonded. You know, what is financial responsibility? Is that somebody that has charge of the petty cash? I don't know what it means. Most of the other charters that I reviewed relative to this have language that states that any member of the governing authority or employee of the parish or other parish officer designated by the council shall be bonded, et cetera, et cetera. So what it means is, rather than just taking this broad statement saying that any member of the or any employee of the parish having financial responsibility, it has to be an employee of the parish designated by the council.
How do they get to have that authority without them being designated by the council?
It's not clear. You know, what I'm afraid of here is that you have somebody, for example, that has some financial responsibility and is not bonded. What's the definition of financial responsibility?
Ms. Manda, would you give us
I don't know that you can come up with that. I'm just saying it's a nebulous term. It doesn't have a good definition.
Ms. Manda, do me a favor, ma'am. Tell us, give us your opinion on this particular item right here, 7-04, in a legal term.
I was asked about this section just several months ago, and to be honest with you, we could not come up with an answer to anyone's satisfaction because we have a treasurer, we have 2 assistant treasurers, we have a CAO who's responsible for a large amount of money, we have the parish president, and the question was who needs to be bonded. And it would certainly be of great help to the parish if they could get some direction from the charter as to who should be bonded. I did call St. Tammany Parish and spoke with their risk manager, and she told me that they have their CFO bonded and their CAO for the larger amounts and the parish president for a smaller amount. And that's how they handle that, practically speaking. But this is a very gray area in our charter.
Mr. Bill, I'm going to do this right now. I understand I got this power. I want you to, on a committee, to report back same time with Ms. Terry so that we can move on. And I want you to find out and research and come back to this committee and let us know other charters and other areas of this location in around Ascension Parish as to who they have bonded, and come back with your recommendation to this board.
I can make that tonight.
You can make that tonight. Fire away.
I want to insert this language in here, which is consistent with the other charters, that you just add this designated by the council. You know, we could remove having financial responsibility, and you say any member of the governing authority or employee of the parish designated by the council shall be bonded, ...
Ms. Manda, would that have solved your problem, or would that have solved what came up recently?
It would certainly provide administration with direction if the council would speak to whom they want to be bonded. Yes, that would be very helpful.
I mean, I'm not really in favor of getting specific here as far as the, saying the treasurer or the assistant treasurer. I don't think that's the place of the charter.
Let's give you your recommendations again.
To strike the words having financial responsibility and replace with
well,
Designated by the council, thank you.
I think
I'll second that.
is that kind of making it broad also, not taking the responsibility and putting it on the council and making it broad?
Got a motion and a second. You second?
Mm-hmm.
I'm just asking. I'm not either. I'm not quite sure.
Well, it's going to,
Give the council is going to be the one that's going to determine who's going to have the bond.
right, they're going to have to sit down and take a look at.
So in other words, really all we're doing is taking it away from the administration side and giving it to the legislature side.
Well, right now, nobody has it. It doesn't say.
Okay.
It just says those persons with financial responsibility shall be bonded, but it doesn't define that financial responsibility. And what we're saying is we're going to let the council determine who they want to be bonded, period.
All right. We have a motion on the floor and a second. All in favor? And that is replace financial responsibilities with parish council.
Designated
By the parish council. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Next item for review is Article 3, Section 3-02. Mr. Bill.
Okay, this is the compensation of the parish president. Currently, it's got a minimum salary of $55,000, and it says the governing authority may change the salary by ordinance, but not during the last year of the president's term. I would like to see some language in here that's more consistent with what we put in for the governing authority, where the parish president's salary is fixed in relation to, first, I'd like to see the language such that it cannot be changed during the current term. I'd also like to see the language added there to where the salary is relative to the sheriff of Ascension Parish. You know, I looked at this, and when I first read this about the sheriff, I said, why pick the sheriff? Why not pick the assessor or somebody like this? But if you look at the other charters, this is consistent with other charters, and if you look at this little review I did, like the second from the bottom, it got president compensation, and
I know we changed that one.
they. I think there's 3 of them that have the sheriff in there, and I think that's probably a good thing.
Yeah, we did change that on ours to the sheriff.
Okay, maybe I missed that. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It was all changed.
So it's already been added. Well, it's the same as the sheriff. The only thing we didn't add to that language that you referred to was that it had to be during the next term.
Okay, so I'd like to move that this section read: the salary of the parish president shall be no less than that of the salary of the parish sheriff during the 3rd year of each 4-year term. The governing authority shall review the salary of the president and set the salary for the next 4-year term. Any change in the salary shall only become effective at the beginning of the next 4-year term.
Second.
Got a second? Any discussion on the motion?
Isn't it possible that could be like a 7-year span?
No, it's every.
We don't know when the sheriff's going to get a raise.
Well, I don't know that.
That's my point. We're talking about it could be a span of 7 years.
I don't know how the sheriff is set.
Sheriff's set by legislation. State legislature sets sheriff's salary.
No, I understand that, but I don't know the frequency of it.
They don't have a specific frequency for applying for the legislature to have an increase.
Well, what this says is that it'll be no less than the sheriff.
Correct.
So they have the opportunity to pay more than what the sheriff is. And they set that during the third year of the 4-year term. So if the governing authority wants to give the parish president, the next elected parish president, a raise, they can do that in the third year of that 4-year term.
The whole point, and not to be argumentative, but the whole point in setting it exactly as the sheriff was to take the politics out of that. Consequently, if you're now saying that we can give you at least that amount, then the option is to give them more than that amount. And we thought that the fair thing to do about that was to put it that being that of the parish sheriff. And if you would, I wouldn't have any objection to if you say that it can't be in this particular term, it has to be in the next term. But as far as changing it, other than that, I would have a problem with.
Well, you know, and I thought about that. And what I think we have to look forward here at Ascension Parish and the fact that we're going to, you know, projected to be 200,000 plus people. This guy is the chief executive officer of our parish. You know, I'm not sure that people run for that office for the salary, but certainly you have to have a salary there that someone is a livable salary, and somebody that's commensurate with that responsibility is willing to work for. You know, my biggest fear here is that we underpay the parish president. I'll be honest with you. You know, this is somebody, again, when I look at this from a business model, you give this person responsibility, you give him the tools to do his job, you pay him well if he does his job, and we move along.
If it's my turn, I agree with you. I agree with you 100%. But not tying it into something leaves the option open to the council.
We set a minimum. This sets the minimum. It cannot be less than the sheriff. So it sets a minimum, a base.
But it still.
But it doesn't put a cap.
It don't.
Doesn't put a cap. Now, I have some.
It also puts the politics back into it, where the way we had done it was the express purpose of taking the politics out of it.
Well, I understand that, and I'll give you an example. Okay, as I serve as president of a corporation, my salary is set by a board. You know, if I perform well, they pay me well. If I don't perform well, they don't pay me well. You know, this is, I think, the model. I don't think you can do that'll translate directly into public service, but it should be the model that we're moving towards, which is that we have people here that are professional, we're able to pay them. You know, I had at one time, I had a caveat in here that limited him or her to 15% above the sheriff's salary. So you'd have this window. The minimum is at the level of the sheriff, and the max is 15% above. That's you know, some of those do that. For example, Iberville, they pay their parish president a flat 10% above the sheriff. Some of these have some, you know, they do some averages of the clerk of court and the assessor and the sheriff, and, you know, a complicated thing. What I think we should get to in Ascension Parish, though, is we should get to the point to where we pay someone based on the job that they do.
Well, you would like it to work that way, but you can't always tell.
And they haven't done that for years.
And what's going to determine the job that they did is re-election time. But the train of thought is good in that you make it attractive so that, you know, you get the best qualified people to run for the position, and it's up to them whether they do a good job. I don't know that if they did a poor job, if we can start cutting their salary, I think you let the voters decide.
Well, it's up to the governing authority. They actually set their salary. Now, if you went by this, they set it one time a year, and they set it for the next term. It wouldn't be for the one that's currently in office. I mean, if you guys are not comfortable with this without a cap, I could amend that to add the cap, the 15% cap on it. I think there should be some flexibility there, though, too. You know, I mean, I don't know the situation. I'm not that familiar with what the parish president and the legislature and all this, but we may find ourselves, just as you said, in this situation where the legislature has not approved the raises for the sheriff, and so now we've got an artificially low salary cap for our parish president, and it comes up for election, and it may affect who runs for that office.
Historically, the sheriffs normally get their increase in salary when they approach the legislature. Not a guarantee, but historically they've not been refused. And secondarily, the population base of this parish that the president will have to serve is the same population base that the parish president, and I mean they both have the same number of people to serve, where the salary is of course of the sheriffs adjusted to population. So they cover it with that aspect. Also, you refer to the parish gaining a lot of population, which is probably going to be true, but then the salary is going to follow.
Yes. I think we can close the discussion, and I'm in agreement. I don't mind putting the 15% cap.
Okay, so we've got I'll second that amendment to the motion to add, and the language will now read, the salary of the parish president shall be no less than that of the salary of the parish sheriff, and no more than 15% above the salary of the parish sheriff. During the third year of each 4-year term, the governing authority shall review the salary of the president and set the salary for the next 4-year term. Any change in the salary shall only become effective at the beginning of the next 4-year term.
Do I have a second?
Yes.
Second.
That's an amendment.
Good.
Okay.
It's still possible that the sheriff would get that raise right after that, and then the parish president wouldn't get it until 4 years later.
All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
As amended. Opposed? Motion carries.
But they have they can go. They can.
Next item for agenda is going to be new business.
Every year prior to, that's the way that motion read.
Okay. Next item on the agenda is new business.
That's what I said. That's the chance they have to do it.
But they can make it above what the sheriff is if they're too low.
Next item is number 5. Mr. Sidman Luke is not here. He asked me to take his place. The only thing we have there is going to be, we're finishing with phase 2. We're going into phase 3. Okay. We have discussed all of the items that we've done except for the one Ms. Terry is going to bring back. I want us to know what we did, know what we have, and this next meeting, I want everybody to be prepared to vote yes or no on the items that we discussed and the items that we're going to change and the way we're going to change it. And it will be a roll call vote based on recommendation by some of the councilmen, some of the commissioners. And let's see. Yes, sir, Mr. Red. Mr. Poche.
Will we have the changes in front of us in writing?
This is
we're going to have to try to remember what was done?
No, this is what we're going to do. This is what we're going to do.
I would suggest if we don't have the changes in writing, that we postpone that until we do.
No, let's look at it this way. Okay.
And I recognize that's a short time frame for y'all, but...
Yeah. Hey, all right, wait. This is what we're going to do. All right. We were asked to be finished by April the 1st. The council doesn't meet. I'm going to ask the parish president and the parish chairman of the council if we can report to them on the night that they meet here, the Thursday night that they meet here in April, which would be the 3rd Thursday of April. They may have to vote on it, change the ordinance or something, but I'm going to request that or ask that. At the beginning of this, we were told that we could get or receive more time. So with that in mind, I would like to turn over what we have to the legal department and the secretary so they can start working on it. In the meantime, I will talk with the parish president and the chairman of the council and see if we can get that date and what we can. And if we can, we'll schedule a meeting I now ask Ms. Suzanne and Ms. Lindsay, how long would it take you to do what you have right now, to put it in the form that we need it, that would be be presented in front of us, to when we do our votes, we'll have it in front of us.
And it'll show the changes.
It'll show all the change, everything except for Ms. Terry's change, the 3 items that she's going to discuss on, and then we can vote on that, and then we can make that change between the time we decide to make the last vote and present it. What time frame would you ladies need? Okay, let me remind you now. I think we're going to get it for the 3rd Thursday of April, and that would be on the 16th, which would give you pretty much from now. It would give you all of the month of March and to April. So don't cut yourself short.
When we're going to meet again?
Yeah, we need to.
Well, okay. If we meet. Right.
The commission expires on April 1st.
Yeah, and we have to have the notes in hand, because I felt like an idiot more than once tonight because I didn't have the references to what had been changed.
That's what I'm saying. In other words,
2 weeks, she said.
2 weeks.
3 days,
But my point I'm trying to make, if we go ahead and in 2 weeks have a meeting right here and have it all done and finished,
3 weeks from tonight.
we can't give it to the parish council until they meet, and they're not. And I would think that we'd want to give it to them here.
Not necessarily.
I mean, we got to give it to them in the meeting, or y'all just want to give it to them?
No, at a meeting. You have
At a
to
meeting?
present it to them in a meeting.
Well, they meet on April the 2nd and April the 16th.
What's wrong with the second?
Or would it go to their strategic planning committee? Did you bring it to them?
I don't know. I mean, April the 2nd they meet in Donsonville. If y'all want to travel to Donsonville and give it to them, that's fine with me.
Chairman,
Yes.
I'm looking at the ordinance that created this commission, and under term it says, the term of the commission shall automatically expire on April 1st, 2009, or the date of the official presentation by the commission to the council, whichever occurs first. Keep in mind, I know you're going to ask for an extension, but keep in mind that this commission was created by ordinance,
Right.
and any amendment can only be done by ordinance. Just so happens that the next parish council meeting is March 5th,
So in other words, that won't fly.
and they scheduled another one a week later on March 12th.
Right.
So you're not going to have time to advertise that ordinance amendment in the paper.
Thank you.
We absolutely have
All right.
to.
I'm going to
have
set
to
it
have
right
this.
now. I'll set it right now. This is what we're going to do. All right? We'll set it right now. You say you need 2 weeks, right? Okay. And that's from the 25th.
2 weeks would be the 11th.
Okay, so that means we'll be able to present it to them on the...
So we'd meet on the 11th.
Yeah. That'd be 2 weeks from tonight. Okay.
No, March would be the man.
11th.
They would meet on the 19th. Would be the next meeting after that. Council meeting anyway.
Yeah. No, that's the night that they do meet in March. They meet on the 4th. I'm sorry, the 5th and the 19th.
12th.
Okay.
The 5th and the 12th. They've rescheduled the 19th meeting.
The 19th, but
They moved the meeting up to the 12th.
No. So that means we'd have to have a meeting next week.
Yes.
We have to have a meeting next week. Y'all can't have it done. Can y'all have it done by next week? 2 weeks.
It would be a stretch, but you can keep in mind you could always request a special meeting of the council before April 1st, if they'd be willing to do that.
Man, we can't even get them to appoint a commissioner to sit on this thing. I know we can't get them to get special.
Okay.
What does the ordinance say? It says to be presented
On or before.
Oh, no.
Basically,
It
on
doesn't have to be. Yeah.
April.
On or before.
They didn't look at the date. If they'd put April 2nd, we could have did it on the 1st. Okay. Can we
You
meet?
don't have to give it to them at a meeting, is that correct? What, can you hand it to them on April the 1st? Can you hand it to the parish, who do we report to? We ought to know that.
Parish president.
Parish president. We can do that.
Does it have to be at a?
one of the recommendations.
Council meeting to be presented?
Miss Manda. Miss Manda?
Yes.
Does it say that we have to turn it in at a? Does it say that we have to turn it in at
Yes.
a parish council
The
meeting?
report shall be presented to the parish council at an official meeting of the parish council.
Said that.
But that, all right.
It has to be at the meeting.
Has to be at a meeting.
But what does this say about being finished?
On or before the 2nd?
On or before the 1st.
2nd.
First, April 1st.
We expire April 1st. No longer see.
We can turn it in before then, but we can't turn it in after.
No, because it expires April 1st.
That means you gotta have it ready for us on the 11th. We vote on everything, then you have it typed up and ready to give it to them the next week. The changes that we make that night.
The next night. They meet on the...
Oh, that's right, the Thursday. That's right.
We need to meet as soon as we can.
They need to come.
The 11th. If we meet on the 11th,
That's the 2nd
You
week?
got to give it to them the next night.
no, we can wait till the 19th, right?
They don't meet on the 19th.
That's right. The 12th. Y'all making it too hard, people. That goes back to not having a quorum where we figured we was gonna finish in January or February.
No.
Well, can y'all have it for next week? Sometime next week, can we have a meeting, Ms. Amanda, Ms. Suzanne? We the 25th. Can you have it ready, say for the 9th? And we meet the 9th or the 10th or the 11th. That'll give you a little bit chance to do what you got to do, and then we meet Thursday on the 12th. Yeah, you see,
The 12th is the meeting. It's the council meeting.
that's what I'm saying. If we can, in other words, if they can get it all done and have it to us, we can meet on the Monday the night, and then vote on it. And if there's any final changes, that gives them the 10th and the 11th to change it, and we present it to the parish council on the 12th. That's the only way we can do it. That gives them all next week, the rest of this week and all next week, to get it ready for the 9th. That's what we're gonna do. Can y'all have it ready for the 9th? March the 9th. That's on a Monday. That's a Monday night. No, ma'am. No. You got. Let's see. They're gonna have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
They can do it.
7. You got about 7 to 8 working days. Okay, this is what we're gonna do now. Can we meet the Monday of the 9th? This is on. Is this room available?
It'll be the second Monday.
That's the second Monday.
Right, second Monday.
The second Monday of March.
That's right. That'll be the 9th. Mr. Porcher, you're not going to be here, right?
Nope.
Okay, then I'm going to beg that we please everybody be here that can be here. And I'm going to talk to Red, and if I got to, I'll get him here some way, shape, or form, so that we have a quota. Because if we don't, we finish.
Yeah.
We finished. I mean, it's that simple.
Either way, we finished.
We finished. I mean, it's that simple. All our work, all in time.
Failing to meet a quorum. I can drive from North Louisiana down here to make a meeting.
Well, I tell you what,
Drive back that night.
that's very nice. I appreciate that, and you just may have to do it. Okay, I will check with you in the morning. You check your calendar for the night. I'll notify the rest of the commissioners, or you can email them. Let's set the meeting for Monday, March the 9th at 6:30. How you like that, Mr. Gregg?
That's wonderful.
Okay. We'll have in the front of us a typed up changes of all the changes except for what we do with Miss Terry, and that'll give y'all the Tuesday and the Wednesday to make those changes and add them to the recommendation, and then we present it on Thursday the 12th.
One thing I'm not clear on, when this is voted on at the next meeting, is it going to be does that have to be a line-by-line vote, or can we vote on that as just accepting the entire document?
Mr. Bill, I was requested by several of the commissioners that we do a roll call vote.
I understand a roll call vote, but do you have to do it for every change, or can you do it for the entire document? Yeah. Can we have one vote and say we accept this entire document as amended?
Oh, I don't know. I think it's in the ordinance. Let's see. It may be.
We've already voted on all of the
Yeah,
changes.
we voted on all of it, so
Yeah.
I don't see any reason why we have to
and
go through them all.
I think you run into some parliamentary problems there if you go back
And try to
something
change.
that's been approved as a motion and you go back and bring it up for reconsideration.
Yeah.
You've considered each item individually. one final review where the document is presented to you and discussion on any item. If you feel like it's not what you voted on, or you have questions.
Yes.
Right. It's going to be our last chance to scratch anything, correct?
Correct.
Well, then it would have to be put on the agenda. So in other words, let's get this straight.
You've already voted on every item.
Right, we did.
Every item.
Okay. Now, on the 9th, when we come here to make a final vote, it'll be one vote to accept all of the changes that we did, except for Ms. Terry, and we can vote on them separately. First.
But
And then
unless it's prohibited by the ordinance, it says this is according to Robert's rules. You can add items to the agenda by 2/3 vote.
State law now says it's not on the agenda, it's got to be unanimous.
Yes.
Okay, well that's fine then.
According
But
to
it
this,
can be done. Is my
each
point.
recommendation shall be separately adopted by the commission. The vote on each recommendation in the report shall be identified in the report by the number of yeas and nays, including each commission member name by each recorded vote.
That's correct.
So we have that in the minutes, I presume.
It wasn't all.
I don't know that we have all.
No, we did.
Nays were.
But it doesn't say a roll call vote. It just says it has to be recorded.
Yeah, but I was requested from several commissioners for a roll call vote.
I think our final vote, though, has to be
Well, I'm
item
okay
by
with
item
that,
roll call.
but the minutes and the
Ms.
By
Manley,
name.
give me your interpretation of what we're discussing now.
The ordinance is what dictates what we do. Yeah, the ordinance dictates what we do.
I mean, we can vote on just one vote to accept the final decision, as long as in the minutes of the meeting we have a vote by everybody on each individual item.
That's not what Mark read.
It says the form of recommendations. The proposed amendment shall be submitted in one comprehensive report of recommendations by the Commission. It shall be entitled Report of Recommendations, and it shall be signed by each member of the Commission. However, each recommendation in the report for amendment or repeal shall be and constitute a separate item. Each recommendation shall be separately adopted by the Commission. The vote on each recommendation in the report shall be identified in the report by the number of yeas and nays, including Commission member name by each recorded vote.
Right.
So all of those that we didn't
We
change,
got all that recorded.
any of them that we didn't change, we can adopt them all at one time. Anything that we made an amendment to, we'll have to go over.
well, you've got it right in the minutes.
We've already done it, and they got it in the minutes.
In the minutes,
If you have it, you have the yeas and the nays. So if you got all that,
It's in the minutes, that's all.
we'll check it out and see, and we'll do according to the ordinance. Do I have a motion for adjournment?
Second.
Motion adjourned is accepted. Adjourned.